What I want to know is how does one get involved in doing rock work as a woman? Do you really, really want to know? Or do you just want the rehearsed response that I always give? What would happen if we chose to really tell the truth about ourselves? Like if we really, really just told the real truth of our lives. I'm not saying that it's true. I'm saying that it's my truth.
You're listening to Hammered.
The first week of 1986 started this sort of rehashing of events. It was as if my mind started replaying all these horrible things that I had done and said, places I'd been. I kept thinking about the night that I had gone down to the Fox Theater with this girl named Dana. She was kind of like a new friend. I would try to befriend different people that were straight and a little more normal. But as soon as I started drinking, I could see the fear in their eyes. But I had gotten these tickets to see the Thompson twins. And I remember running out of money. And I had $1 in my wallet that I had had in that wallet since Ann and I had been at Clarence Foster's one night. It was a bar in Buckhead with all the corporate married men, and they would buy us drinks. And she had written, "I love you" on $1 and handed it to me under the table while these guys were like blah, blah, blah about themselves. And I remember when she handed me that $1 and I looked at what she had written, and it made me so happy because it was like we had this whole other world going on while they were like trying to entertain us. And I put that in my wallet and I swore that I would keep that until I died. So dramatic, of course. But that night at the Fox Theater, as I had begun to unravel, I went to the beer counter and draft beer was $1. And I remember taking that $1 out and looking at the words, "I love you." And I bought that beer. And I really knew that the gig was up and the end was near. And that started kind of flowing through my mind. And then I remembered the driving school I had to go to when I had gotten another DUI. And it was actually called Haynie's driving school, which was so bizarre because my father had to go to the same driving school because he had had a DUI. And I remember the teacher at the driving school, and he was this older man, and he was kind of stern, but he seemed compassionate. And I sat in the back, very quiet and miserable, and there was this young guy that sat on the front row in this desk, real cute, good-looking guy, young, probably younger than me. I remember the teacher using this guy as an example of somebody who could stop drinking. And this boy had stopped drinking for 9 months. And to me, that was like an eternity. And after the class was over, he turned around and he said something like, "I know a lot of people my age that don't drink," because somebody in the class had said, "Well, everybody that I know drinks." And I remember that boy, there was a group of kids outside the door waiting for him when the class ended, girls and guys, all around the same age, like early 20s. And I remember they all like looked really free and happy, and they were, "Hey, come on, let's go." And they weren't drunk. And that really stuck out in my mind, but I knew that that was not a reality for me. this week that was in front of me, I didn't know that I was going to live. I really believed that I was going to die. And I didn't have my rent money. And it was the first week in January. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. And on a Sunday night, I remember I went and bought a bunch of NyQuil because you couldn't buy alcohol at a store. You could go to a bar and drink, but you couldn't buy it at a store. And I just could not go to a bar. So I bought all these bottles of NyQuil because they were full of alcohol. And I drank them until I just passed out. And if you ever want to experience some sickness, drink a lot of NyQuil and try to make it the next day, because it really does a number on your nervous system. I remember coming to, and I was so sick that I could not get up. And I decided to just lay there. I had never in my life just laid there and not gotten up and gotten a shower and tried to attempt to go to work. Even if I was sick, I would go to work. Well, I laid there, and I remember the phone started ringing and ringing and ringing, and I wouldn't answer it. And it seemed like hours went by, and I would go in and out of sleep. I just kept thinking, I've just got to go to sleep. I just want to die. And I remember my apartment door, somebody started banging on the door, beating on the door. And it scared the shit out of me, and I just laid there. And the next thing I know, I hear Mohan's voice, and I hear a lady, and I hear them coming into my apartment. They came to my bedroom door, and I was laying in my bed with my eyes closed, and I could hear them talking. And they said, "Is she breathing?" And he said, "It looks like she's breathing." I was petrified. How in the fuck am I going to get out of this one? And he came over to me, and he reached down and he touched me. He said, "Jill." And so I turned and I looked up at him all blurry-eyed, and I acted worse off than I was. And I went, "Daddy." And I pretended that I saw my dad instead of him. And he said, "No, no, no, it's me, Mohan. You must get up. You must get up and take a shower. You must get up." And I got up and I started crying, and I told him I didn't have my rent and I wanted to die. And I went down this whole thing, and poor guy, I'm sure, looking back at it, he was a caretaker and a codependent, but I didn't even know that terminology back then. I got a shower, I got myself together, and I went on to work. And later that day, he gave me the money for my rent, which made me feel even lower because I knew my debt to him was getting bigger and bigger. He had helped me many times, and I was making a very small salary. I don't know how this was going to get resolved, but I really didn't care at this point. That week, I got drunker and drunker every night. I floated checks through the cash register for money so that I could buy beer. Friday night rolled around, and I just drank a lot of tequila and a lot of beer, and had to go to work the next Saturday morning. I went to work that Saturday morning, and I don't think I've ever been that depressed in my entire life. I went in the bathroom, and I drank some vodka with some Alka-Seltzer to get me through the day. At the end of the day, I went down to Mile Aways around 5 o'clock. And when I walked in, there was this bartender named Jack. He was kind of tall, kind of reddish hair with a mustache. He was friendly, but he saw me coming in, and I could tell he looked concerned. But he slid a shot of tequila and a Miller Lite beer to a seat before I even sat down. And I went and I sat down, And there was Cliff and Faye, these two old barflies. They were probably in their like late 60s, and they had been having an affair for about 25 years. They were both married, but they had this ongoing kind of drunken affair that made me very sad. Well, I sat down with them and I took that shot of tequila, and it was as if I just poured some gasoline or some kerosene on this fire. My cheeks lit up. My body just started pulsating. My back hurt. My stomach hurt. Because by now, when I would take a drink, I think my kidneys and my organs were so affected that I had pain. And I had a lot of pain in my back when I would take a drink of alcohol. But this one shot of tequila just relit this drunkenness that was an ongoing. I never really had drawn a sober breath, probably in over a month. I just kept it rolling and kept it going. Well, about that time, Michael came into the bar. And I looked at him like, what are you doing in here? And he came over to me and he goes, Jill, don't stay in here tonight. He goes, just come over at my house. I've got Mom's car and she's at work. I took her to work, but I've got her car. Just come home. Just come home with me. Now, by then, Michael and his mother had moved out of the apartments into a house that they were renting. He said, just come over at my house, please. He goes, I'll make you something to eat. And if you have to drink, you can drink Mom's beer. And I remember I wanted to go with him. Like I really wanted to go with him. But my butt was glued to that bar stool. And I looked at him and I said, Michael, I can't. And he says, why? Why can't you? And I said, I have to stay here. And his poor little sad face, I'll never forget. He goes, I just don't understand. And he started walking out, and he walked out of the door of Mile Aways. Two girls walked in, and it was Lisa with this person that I didn't know, this girl with long dark hair, kind of tall. And I waved at Michael with a sadness, but the minute I saw them walk in, it was like my personality shifted into, hey! And they came over, hey, Curly, what's going on? And Lisa introduced me to this girl, Julie, which was kind of, I guess, her new love mate or something. And I hadn't seen her in a long time, and she hadn't seen me. And so I recall saying, let's go sit at a table. Let's don't sit at the bar. And we went to a table, and they had been out horseback riding, and they were telling me about horseback riding. So I became the big shot all of a sudden because I still had my American Express card that was accumulating as we speak. And the waitress's name was Kathleen, and she was this real Irish-looking lady with light strawberry blonde hair and real thick glasses and just the biggest smile on the planet. And she was so friendly and nice, and I think she was a really good person. And she came over to the table, and I said, Kathleen, go ahead and bring us all a shot of tequila and a beer. And I said, I know, just bring us a whole tray of shots. And she laughed, ha, 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 and everybody laughed. And back then, there was no limit on the amount of alcohol you could buy. You know, in a small bar like that, they're going to sell you whatever. She came back with a tray, and I don't know how many shots of Cuervo Gold were on that tray, but there were a lot of shots on there. And she sat it down, and we put them all down, and we got our chaser and our lime, and we started shooting tequila. And at one point, I remember acting like I was putting on a seatbelt, and I told the girls, I said, get ready, put your seatbelt on, because we don't know where we're going to end up tonight. These images are like they were yesterday. I can feel this. I can feel that tequila. I glanced over at one point and I saw my daddy sitting at the bar. He acted like he didn't know me. He looked the other way. And I remember Lisa saying, "Isn't that Billy? Isn't that your dad?" I said, "Yeah, he didn't claim me." It was a horrible, horrible time. Well, this conversation, who knows? I have no idea what we were talking about, but we got drunker and drunker and drunker and drunker. The last thing I remember is going into the bathroom and I saw Lisa's feet under the bathroom stall. And she had passed out in the bathroom, and I kind of broke the door open and I got her up and tried to wake her up. And then the girl, Julie, came in, and that was the last thing I remember. When I woke up, I was in my kitchen floor in my apartment. It was January 12th, 1986. I was laying in the floor and I had a butcher knife on my chest, holding a butcher knife. Completely nude. I had no clothes. There was vomit and throw up all over this kitchen. There was food packaging all over this kitchen. It was the grossest thing. And I remember looking around thinking, what the fuck happened here? What happened here? And I jumped up and the sky was blue. It was a beautiful Sunday. It was a beautiful January cold day. And I have never in my entire life felt the kind of panic and the terror that was surging through my body. I had never experienced anything like this in my entire life. And I ran through the apartment. I grabbed some clothes. I ran outside to see if my car was there, and there it was. I checked for dents or blood or anything. I came back in and I started to panic. And then this voice started ringing in my ear, "Call Terry, call Terry, call Terry." And it was like a mantra. And I'm thinking, if I fucking call Terry, I'll be drunk by noon. I can't call Terry. Now, Terry was the alcoholic that I drank with at the apartments, who always was drinking Evan Williams, who was like 30. And it kept on, "Call Terry, call Terry, call Terry." And I argued in my mind, I can't call Terry. The last time I'd seen Terry, she'd gotten real out of control at my little gathering. Well, it was persistent. It kept saying, "Call Terry." I went in my bathroom. I took a bottle of extra strength Tylenol. I dumped them in my hand. And as I shut the medicine cabinet door, I locked eyes in the mirror with myself. I had not seen myself in years, not in this way. I looked at my face. I saw this bloated, sick monster. I had broken blood vessels all over my face. It looked as though if you took a pin, you could pop me like a balloon. My stomach was distended. I had all these marks on my stomach, and I couldn't figure out what they were. I thought that was some kind of weird parasite or caterpillar or something under my skin. And it was these dark, dark purple, weird lines all under my stomach line. And I couldn't figure out what it was. Of course, later I figured out they were stretch marks because I had just drank myself into this like popping. I mean, I could not hold one more drop of alcohol in my body. When I saw myself, the voice got louder. Call Terry. Call Terry. I went into my bedroom. I grabbed the phone. I called her number. And she said, hello? And I go, hey. She goes, oh, are you back from the war? I said, what do you mean? Well, it's Sunday morning. I'm sure you feel like you've been through a war. I go, yeah, I feel pretty bad. Well, what are you doing? And in the meantime, I'm thinking, I don't want to talk to her. I got to hang up. I don't want to talk to her. I'm going to get drunk. This is going to be bad. She goes, well, I'm going to take Billy to practice, and I'm taking Scarlett to get her groomed by a friend of mine. And then I'm going to a meeting. And I said, a meeting? She said, that kind. Do you want to go? And I went, yeah, no. She goes, I'll be over there to get you in about 15 minutes. I said, no, that's okay. I don't want to go. She said, get dressed. I'm going to come get you. And I said, no, I'm not going. I'm not going to go. She goes, I'll be there in 15 minutes, Jill. Get dressed. Well, I'm not going. Well, sure enough, she shows up at my apartment, and she comes in, and she looked at me, and she said, get your change clothes. And she kind of helped me find something to wear. And I said, I really don't think this is a good idea. I don't feel good. I feel very sick. She said, get in the car. She had this little tiny green beat up Toyota Corolla, kind of like my car. Mine was brown. Hers was green. Same year. We drove down I-85, and I was so sick I couldn't hardly stand it. I thought I was going to throw up out the window, and she just kept saying, just roll the window down, stick your head out the window. And we went down 85, and we pulled into this place, and it said NABA, had the letters N-A-B-A. I had no idea what the hell that meant. And I said, what is this place? She said, it's kind of like a club. And so we parked, and we walked in, and I was shaking so bad. And we sat there, and they started talking, and this man kind of was leading the whole thing. And I remember looking up on the wall, and they had this big thing hanging on the wall, and it said the 12 steps. And I started reading those steps, and when I saw the word God, I went, oh no, this will never work, because I knew that I was going to hell, and I knew that God was going to punish me even more. And I just sat there in this sadness, and the people talked, and it was real muffled, and I couldn't really hear, and it was getting worse and worse. I was getting sicker. I needed a drink, and I sat on my hands. My hands began to tremor so bad. I had to sit on them, and I was holding the seat, sitting on my hands, and it was kind of toward the end of this meeting. And this man, he looks at me, and he said, would our visitor like to say anything? And I just sat there, and all of a sudden, I completely broke, and I said, I just don't want to die. I just don't want to die. And about that time, there was a lady sitting in front of me, and I had seen the back of her head, and she had this kind of blonde, pretty hair, kind of a hairdo. She turned around, and that face was so familiar, and those eyes were so familiar, those twinkling blue eyes. And she winked at me, and it was Diane D., the lady from the photo shop that wore the one day at a time necklace. And she put her hand on my knee, and I thought I was going to lose my mind. The people gathered around me. They came in on me and they began to hug me. And I was completely melting down. I had to get out of there. I couldn't breathe. I had to get out of there. I couldn't breathe. We finally got out to the car. After I'd gone up, and they offered this white chip, and they said, this signifies the international sign of surrender. If you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you would like to try this new way of life, you have to come up here and get this. I didn't think I could walk up there. And I walked up there and I got the fucking poker chip. And I really thought I was going to pass out. And Terry helped me and we got in the car. When they had called for the 30-day chip, Terry had raised her hand. And she'd gone up and she'd gotten a 30-day chip. And I said, what? So this is where you've been? And she hadn't had a drink for 30 days. I couldn't believe it. 30 days to me was like 10 years. We got in the car. She had her little 30-day chip and I had this white chip and it was so surreal. And I looked over at her and I said, how did you do this? How'd you do this for 30 days? And she goes, well, all I know is that they told me that I can drink tomorrow and I can drink yesterday, but I just can't drink today. And I was so confused. And I looked at her and I said, well, can I hang out with you today and tomorrow? And she said, of course. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day.
Hammered is recorded and produced in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. It's narrated by Jill Haynie, produced by Maggie, Briggs, and Jill Haynie, and with sound design, editing, and music by Alexander Rodriguez. Our beautiful artwork was created by Lauren Caddick, and we'd like to send a special thanks out there to Minnie and Robin. You can check out our website, podcasthammered.com, and follow us on social media for updates.